It's time to live life through the eyes of fit people so that you too can live a fit life yourself. This is Fit Because. I'm one of your hosts, Jennifer Zerling, but you can call me Jay-Z. I'm a fitness and age management expert, author, speaker, as well as an international health advocate.
And I'm your other host, George Veater. I'm an entrepreneur, cattle rancher, fitness enthusiast, and a 6-time rodeo champion who has a huge amount of knowledge to share with you in the area of self-improvement.
Oh, he does. Get ready to learn how to bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing what it takes to become physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially fit.
You ready, Jay-Z?
Oh, I'm ready, George.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back. Already episode 22. Gosh, this is awesome, George. I got my co-host here to my right, George Veater. I'm Jay-Z. And this is a topic you don't want to miss. The power, and I'm talking about power of forgiveness. How many times have you felt so disempowered because you have so many people that have maybe hurt you or wronged you or whatever, and you're carrying this huge burden of that you just need to get rid of. So today's episode is all about how to let go, how to move forward, regain your power back so that you could truly be fit because.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us, especially in this format of this show and the topics that we entertain, it's all about empowering and how we can get closer to the person that we really want to be, and how do we remove roadblocks, from our path, and how do we gain more tools so that we can be more powerful in the pursuit of goals. And forgiveness is, or the lack of forgiveness or carrying grudges is a weight. And it definitely encumbers us in our journey through life, and it depletes happiness. So when we think about forgiving people, we really should think of it in the context of benefiting ourselves through the act, not releasing somebody from some debt that they owe us, right?
Right. Like people look at it as it's a get out of jail pass or something, when you're saying you're the one who's imprisoned.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are the first steps to doing that? Because obviously nobody wants to be hurt, and nobody wants to admit to that person that they are released. So how do they achieve the sense of liberation and really truly moving forward and leaving this anger behind?
I think, first of all, we have to realize that we can't be happy without forgiving people, right? So we have to look at it as it's a self-serving thing in that measure, right? It's obviously going to benefit other people if we release them from our condemnation, right? But it's also going to lighten our soul. I've had lots of those situations in my life, actually, of people that have wronged me, as we all have, or we have perceived that they have wronged us, right?
Right. Perception, yeah.
Yeah. And lots of times we're carrying it around and they're not. We think because they offended us, or they did something wrong, or they violated us in some way, or abused us, or whatever they did that we feel so angry about. Lots of times they're unaware that we're carrying that around. It's just our burden, even though we believe it's their debt they owe us.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Which makes people even more angry.
It does.
And not want to forgive for that reason.
It does. It does. And honestly, we do not have time to pack around grudges if we've got a sense of urgency about our life and we've got a mission to fulfill, whatever that mission is. We have to let go of stuff. We have to drop those weights. I had a situation, and then it always comes to mind since it happened, but when I was building a house on the ranch, this is now 5-6 years ago, and I had a paved road. I have a 2-mile paved road from the highway up to the top of the ridge where I have the house on the ranch. And so, as you can imagine, it was quite a project to build 2 miles of paved road, up there from my driveway. Well, part of the first winter, part of the paved road failed and had to be redone. So it was a very expensive project. And I had a friend of mine in the community that told me he could do the job. And so I gave him the work. And in this example, he didn't want to give me an exact bid. He's a friend, So I said, okay, can you give me like a ballpark? How much this is going to
I
cost me?
remember this story.
Yeah. And he said, oh, it'll cost between 80 and 100,000 bucks. I
Okay.
said, fine, go ahead and do the project. Well, it took forever to get the project done.
Yeah.
And bottom line is he gets it done. And I said, okay, how much do I owe you? And of course it was 100,000, the top end, which is fine. It's totally cool. But then a short time later, I got a call from an equipment rental company where he was getting a lot of the big equipment to use. And some of our viewers and listeners might know, but there's what's called a mechanic's lien. That, like if you have a house built, that people, the subs that are doing the work, they actually, in case they don't get paid, they can lien the value of their service or materials against your property, right?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Even if you've paid a general contractor or somebody else for the job, you can still have this debt against you if they don't pay their bills. So you know where this is headed.
Yeah.
I end up getting a call from some attorney in Chicago saying, hey, I have a mechanic's lien on your ranch, and I'm going to force the sale of the ranch if you don't cut me a check for $27,000 because this guy never paid his rental bill.
Right.
And it was big rigmarole. In fact, this friend of mine, I called him. I'm like, how could this happen? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just oversight. I'll get this taken care of, yada, yada. Never happened. He ended up bouncing a couple of checks to these guys, the rental company. So now I'm talking to some guy in Chicago that's like,
you're responsible, period.
Rocco kneecaps. We're not messing around anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to exercise this lien and get our money, and we don't care if it's you, him, or anybody else that pays us, but someone's paying us. So I had the choice, and I went ahead and I paid that bill. So I paid, that in addition to already having the full job paid for. And then I met with this guy from our community. I said, I want to take you to lunch and talk to you about this. And so he met me for lunch. And I said, okay, I'm just going to release you from this debt. I'm going to not discuss it anymore. I'm not going to make this uncomfortable when we see each other that you owe me this money. I'm just gifting this $27,000. I'm paying it. I don't want you to pay me back. It's canceled and we're not going to discuss it again. I said, but I just need you to know you can't keep doing business like this and flourish, I mean, keep your commitments. And I gave him a little advice like that, not condescendingly, but just as a friend, But I released that. And then it has never bothered me. As a matter of fact, now I think of it as one of the good experiences because it was a example in my life of how forgiving somebody of a debt or a perceived wrong or some type of injustice freed me, and it lightened me, and I could just move on. It didn't cloud my thinking anymore. So it was a blessing to me, and that's the way it is when we forgive.
But do you feel like this experience actually impacted the way you work with subsequent jobs as such?
Well, you learn. Sure.
But what did you learn, and how do you do things differently to avoid that from happening again with someone else?
Yeah, well, I would just inquire and make sure, because I could have done follow-up to make sure those bills were being paid, right?
Okay.
I could have.
Before you paid him the $100,000.
Right. Right. So in hindsight, there's things I could have done to prevent this from happening in the first place. And that's just called being educated through life, and that's okay.
But you're taking on a responsibility, and that's very humbling of you.
Yeah.
So you're saying that people need to kind of look at, well, what could I have done differently?
Yeah, I think definitely. And again, in the final analysis, this friend of mine, as with anybody that we're talking about that we need to forgive, we don't know their exact circumstances, right?
Yeah.
We don't. Nobody completely understands what it's like to be me in this moment, dealing with whatever I'm dealing with. As I can't understand exactly what you're going through or what anybody's going through. So therefore, I don't really have the right to judge, do I? Because I don't really understand. I don't really know all of the circumstances and all of the contingent details that go into why somebody does what they do.
Right.
Or what they meant when they did it.
Yeah.
The reality is, in this case, this friend of mine, he got himself in a position that he couldn't get himself out of. He obviously overspent, didn't bid, judged the job right, etc.
Isn't a good businessman.
Right. He's right. Right. That was obviously beyond his skill set at that moment in his life. Right. I trusted him, and I took the responsibility for paying for the decision I made to trust him.
Right.
And I hope that he learns from that, and I hope his life evolves in a way that blesses him more, and that won't victimize other people through that particular instance happening or recurring again. But I can't really, when I think about it, I really don't know where he was at or what his intentions were, or if I just don't know. So I don't have the right to condemn him. I don't have the information to condemn him. I just have the right to forgive him and release me from the negative feeling that's a cancer in my soul.
And you've also released yourself of that responsibility of knowing the why behind why this person hurt you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because there's people who go through really horrific situations with relationships, with jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to provide very tangible tools for people so that they can start that process of forgiveness. Because sometimes forgiveness is something from like 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, where people are like, well, my parents weren't good parents, for example. And this is like a 45-year-old woman, for example, like dealing with this pain that she never addressed. So what can we provide those people with this buried, such deep anger? Where do they start?
Yeah. First of all, they have to feel it. They have to get a complete handle on what exactly it is they're upset about. You know, sometimes if somebody's really upset with you, you know they're upset with you, and you just ask them, tell me exactly what it is you're upset about. They can kind of talk themselves through it as they explain to you what they're upset about.
Right.
It's like when we journal sometimes ourselves, when we put on paper what we're feeling or thinking, sometimes we look at that on paper and we go, oh my gosh, that's a crazy thought. Why am I thinking that? Right? Because I've got it on paper. I've got it in front of me. I can completely analyze it now. It was just kind of rattling around, not organized in my mind before. That's kind of the way it is with grudges or deep-seated feelings we have negative about other people. We have to decide exactly what it is we're upset about. Why are we mad? Why do we feel we were wronged? And then we have to be able to put ourselves as best we can in that other person's shoes and say, well, I wonder what they were feeling. I wonder why they did that. I wonder what equipment that they're using emotionally and just in the world in order to have made that decision that I feel harmed me.
Right.
Is there something there that I can have compassion about? There's a story, Jen, I'll tell real briefly. In the Bible, most everybody will remember this story where Jesus is taken before this woman that was committed, or I guess she had committed adultery, was found in adultery, I think is the way that the Bible says. Anyway, they drugged this woman, and the Jewish law was to stone her, right? That was the punishment for adultery. So all these people were around her that had judged her, and they had stones in their hands, and they were ready to stone her. And then they asked Jesus, you know, don't we have the right? Shouldn't we stone her? Isn't that what the law of Moses says? And the famous words of Jesus were, let him without sin cast the first stone. And then just backed everybody off, you know. They all backed away. Nobody threw a stone. And then the crowd just disseminated. And so Jesus asked the woman, where are thou, or where are these people that were accusing you? And she goes, I don't know, Master. And anyway, he told her, well, neither do I accuse you. Go and sin no more. So he didn't condemn her. He didn't even say, I forgive you. He just relieved her of that situation, that moment, without condemning her, and then told her to go, don't do that again, that got you in trouble, right?
If you did anything.
Right, if you did. In that case, obviously, because of the world that she was living in. She,
you know what my favorite quote is that I learned from a guy who's the manager at Keyson Van Nuys Chevrolet. He said, a guilty conscience doesn't need an accuser.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Right.
I love that. And that's what I'm going to tell my daughter when she's born. So if she's actually guilty, I don't need to accuse her. She knows, you know, it's her. So I just think that's really cool. So I think that the biggest problem is people who don't want to release the individual from that feeling of pain where they forgive them is they feel like their power was given away and they don't want to keep their power away from them. So having that grudge is their power.
Yeah.
What can replace that power of the grudge so that they still feel empowered and that they're, bringing themselves back to their truth?
Okay, there's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Maxwell Maltz
I
is the
read
author.
that.
Isn't that a great book?
It's the best.
And he's got a whole chapter on forgiveness. Right?
Yes.
And I referenced that. I put some of it on my phone this morning as I was just thinking about it, because it's real powerful, some of the stuff he talks about.
Great book to read.
And he talked about the idea of therapeutic forgiveness, that there's a difference. Like, people will forgive out of duty they feel.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like canceling one note and creating another note, right? Because I'm forgiving you this, but you owe me because I forgave you.
Yeah.
So really, I'm kind of better than you.
Ah.
Right? So there's that self-righteous forgiveness, and that's not what he's talking about. Therapeutic forgiveness is literally canceling the note as if there had never been a debt in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? And realizing that is lightening you. You're the beneficiary of therapeutic forgiveness. It creates lightness, perspective. It just gets that roadblock out of your way on your journey. So to completely forgive is different than forgiving out of duty or out of some righteous motive on your part as you see it. That's not real forgiveness.
No, it's not, because you're still holding on. So you have to completely let go. And you brought up a really good point, because what that's going to do is open up your opportunity to have bigger and better relationships in your future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
And without the judgment. He says that, or Maxwell Maltz, again, referencing that book, he says that forgiveness is the scalpel by which we can remove emotional scars. That's cool, huh?
I love that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think, and you've also, I'm sure everybody's heard this analogy, but when we hold these grudges and we feel ill will about somebody because of something they've done to us that we're carrying around this acidy feeling about, the grudge that we're holding and the resentment that we feel is really us drinking the poison that we want them to get sick by, right? It's making us sick, not them sick, right?
Yeah.
So therapeutically forgiving people gets that out of your system.
Do we have to tell people that we forgive them, you think?
That's a good question. I think that would be a case-by-case basis. I think sometimes people, it would bless them to know that we forgive them, and not in a righteous way, like, I forgive you.
Yeah, I just
You
did you a
sinner.
favor, right?
And just letting you know, I've let that go. And that is, you were going through whatever you were going through, and it hurt my feelings. I'm past that. I don't consider that as a violation of our friendship or whatever. And I just want you to know that's gone.
But what if people don't want to be forgiven by you because they're the key source of that anger, and they want you to be angry at them because that creates that emotional barrier where you could never have a relationship with them?
Yeah, well, again, that's out of your control, right? You're releasing yourself from the poison of that relationship, right?
Yeah.
If they choose to keep poison on their side of the fence, I mean, that's all you can do, You love people and you wish the best for them, and you release yourself from resentfulness that you were feeling before, and you therapeutically forgive and you move on. It's the only way to be happy.
I like how in Texas, when you say something off, they say, God bless your heart.
Right.
And it's so soft and calming, but meanwhile, it's like, I'll pray for you because you're the one with the issue.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. You need the prayers.
Right. So why do you think that people really want to focus on a sense of revenge? Like what you said before, instead of that therapeutic forgiveness, it's like, I have one up on you, if I forgive you.
Yeah. Well, it's because we are responding to hurt, right? It's a defense mechanism, don't you think? If someone hurts you, if someone physically hurts you, you recoil and then you defend yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's a protection mechanism. So, but it becomes a very limiting factor going forward in our lives if we hold on to it.
Yeah.
So if someone throws a dart at you, either emotionally or verbally or in any possible way, We just have to understand that, yeah, we can feel the dart. It's not that we are going to be completely immune to getting our feelings hurt by people based on their interaction towards us or business partners or whatever wasn't fair. But then we have to think about that clearly. We have to logically pick apart why we're upset. We have to consider the other person and what they might be going through, or at least resolve ourselves to the fact that we don't know everything that they're going through. We release them from that if it's appropriate verbally, if not just in our heart. And then we let it go and move on. We learn and we grow.
Right, but okay, let's take that rhetorical situation of someone throws a dart at you, you block the dart. Like in that moment, are we asking that person to help us understand their point of view? Like, what should we do in that moment so that resentment and grudges and all this nasty energy about that person or about the outcome of their intentions doesn't spoil us emotionally?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I think, though, that, there's a certain amount of defense mechanism that's going to happen, right? I mean, that's okay. We protect ourselves. That's
right.
That's part of learning how to negotiate our way through life, right? There are bad people out there, and there are people that have ill intent towards us. And there are decisions that we have to make to remove ourselves from certain people, right, that are nasty or negative, or just aren't, their lives are not congruent with our lives and where our paths are. So there has to be a separation, and that's okay. And when somebody does willfully hurt us in some way, we have to, again, recoil from that, but then we have to process and let it go. So I'm not saying that we just don't get our feelings hurt anymore, or we are oblivious to people that are trying to harm us. No, we've got to be smart. We've got to keep gaining wisdom and tools of how to, manage our way through life. But we have to do the inventories. And when we're carrying a grudge, when something's bothering us that we're past, right? It's back there now.
Yeah.
Then we need to be able to put it on paper to reconcile that is not healthy for us to move forward carrying around that grudge or that acidy feeling. We see it for what it is. We consider what we don't know about the other person. We release them, and then we move forward. So it's not, not paying attention to those things. It's being able to resolve them, put them behind you, clear them, and moving forward, because they accumulate and they will slow you down and they will stop some people.
And they'll deteriorate you and make you get older quick as well.
Definitely.
So I think that what you're saying is people also need to recognize when they truly haven't let go. Should they relate back to that self-talk of, I already made a decision, I'm going to let this go, so I need to commit to letting go?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's repetitive.
It's a great way to reframe that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's something that you could put in your affirmations, I forgive all people that have offended me in some way.
Repetition is key.
Yeah. So I just think, the goal of everybody listening here is to learn how to manage your life better, be happier, and to be more empowered. And we have to learn to forgive in order to facilitate all of those goals. So right. I would recommend, as far as, people to read more, the book that we reference, Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. That was a phenomenal. That was published in the 60s sometime, but it's just a great work. And his perspective on forgiveness, on therapeutic forgiveness, really changed the way I view it. And it was a blessing to me. So I go ahead and extend to everybody an invitation to go grab that book. It's in print.
Yeah, and you could read it when you need it. So it's always available.
And then we'll, of course, put the bullet points of, things to consider when we're feeling grudges towards people, or when we're making an inventory of any unresolved issues we have with people we feel have offended us, so we can clear that and move forward with a lighter feeling, a better countenance, and more power towards our future.
I love that. And if you're looking to lose weight, then right away you're going to feel just a bunch of weight lift off your shoulders, which can actually free you and move you forward in your weight loss journey. So
absolutely. So Jen, if you're mad at me about something after this show, we'll get it all cleared up. Okay.
I'm just confused. I'm not saying I'm mad about why you're wearing a Guinness t-shirt on a Fit Because show, but that's not mad. I'm not holding grudges. I forgive you. I know, Mike thought it said genius, but it says Guinness. It's okay though. Okay. It's got more carbs in it than sugar itself, but that's another conversation. I'm just kidding. Anyway, excellent episode as always. You're awesome. So insightful, George, and I love love doing episodes with you.
Grateful.
So.
They certainly benefit me, these conversations, Jen. Hopefully they do our viewers and listeners. Thank you.
Absolutely. So
This has been Fit Because, hosted by Jennifer Zerling
And George Veater. Be sure to follow us on social media at Fit Because Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And for past episodes, be sure to visit our website at fitbecause.com.
Also, please subscribe to our show on iTunes and be sure to rate and comment. You may always request topics for our subsequent episodes.
And if you love this episode, please share it with someone you love so that we can continue spreading our mission to help people be fit.
Until next time, take care of yourself and know that your future is
Fit because.